To see you on this Tuesday. Today, we're going to be chatting about maybe one of my favorite topics, the true self, your true self. We're going to talk about four qualities of your highest authentic self and some ways that we can cultivate that true self. So, this is a topic that I've been studying and exploring for the past few years. Um, and my sort of the way that I teach it now is a combination between what I see in the scripture as sort of the old man and the new man, the renewed self, and some tenets of modern psychology as well. But I love thinking about this topic and teaching on this topic because I think this can really unlock your life in ways that not many other things can. And when you get an understanding of this, I think you'll see how important it is. This concept is actually so important that it's really the cornerstone of my whole coaching program. So we talk about true and false self in relation to so many other things. Like we talk a lot about habits in there. We talk about true self habits versus false self habits, habits that help you become more of who God made you to be, your true self, and habits that take you the other direction. When we talk about relationships, like being your true self in relationships, when we talk about contributing your gifts, what are the gifts that you've been given and how do you contribute those as your true authentic self? So we talk about it a lot in my program. And I think I probably have a different way of thinking about it than I see most people talk about it. So I want to give you a little bit of an understanding, like a little bit of background of what I mean when I say that. And then we are going to talk about four qualities of your true self. And over the next 4 weeks, we're going to explore each quality in more depth. So, um, when I think about true self, and I don't have the download ready for you today, but I will get it for you for next week. I think about the qualities of who we really are as our true selves. What are those qualities? And this is like the way God made us to operate. He made us to operate in love. He made us to operate with joy. He created us to operate in forgiveness. He made us to be generous and operate in abundance. He made us to have faith and hope. Like, think of all of those qualities. They're kind of like true self emotions, all of the qualities that it's actually the way it's what we all really want. Like, don't you want to have more peace, joy, love, contentment? Don't you want to have more, or don't you want to have less fear, strife, anger, frustration? So those are like false self emotions. The true self emotions are the place that we really want to get to. Other ways that I think about true self is that true self is who you really are. So when you strip away the things that the ego wants, how the ego wants to protect you, how the ego is always trying to prove itself, how the ego wants to people please so that people think a certain way about you. Think of all the ways that you interact in the world. And listen, for all of us, we all interact in so many ways that are our false self because we think that's a safer way to go. Like, if I really was who I really am, maybe I wouldn't be accepted or whatever. But true self is who you really are, who God made you to be when you renew your heart and mind to live in alignment with how he made you. When you totally know that you were created for a purpose, in love, by love, for love, and you're totally living in that, you're living with your heart and mind renewed and transformed by his love, by his power, by his presence. That is your true identity. That is the new man. That is the renewed mind and heart. But why is it that we, in a practical sense, find it so hard to do this? Why is it that so few people do it? This is why when you learn to cultivate this quality in your life, you'll be like a magnet to people. People are so drawn to people who are genuine, to people who are living as their highest self, as their true self, living from a place of love and joy and peace, contentment, generosity, all of those qualities, it's so magnetizing because so few people do it. But when I think about that, I think this is who we really are. When you strip away the need to protect yourself, the need to look a certain way to people, um, this is living as your true self is willing to be vulnerable. You don't need to hide. You're open. You acknowledge your doubts and insecurities. You have this strong sense of self awareness instead of like self consciousness, which is what we have, like always worried about what people think. We're just very self aware of how we are in the world. And we're very self aware of other people, or very aware of other people and how they are interacting in the world. True self is always operating from this place of abundance. Like there's so much to go around. We don't operate from this place of lack. I want you to think how often in your own life maybe you operate from a place of scarcity. True self is generous, always finding a way to give, always willing to receive. This month in my coaching program, we're talking a lot about the ability to receive, especially as women, and that first being willing to receive the gifts that we've been given, to receive the love we've been given, to receive that unconditional love and acceptance, while also wanting to learn how to live in that more fully. True self is always finding a way to forgive self, forgive others. True self lives from a place of love and sees everything through the eyes of love and compassion. True self protects others. True self is protected. So we are protected and loved by God. So then we can freely love and protect other people instead of always feeling like we have to protect ourselves from our ego. And these qualities, as we commit to cultivating these qualities in ourselves, it makes us experience life at such a rich, deep level. We have this resilience about us, this lightness, this feeling of being alive and strong and loving and kind and fully present, excited about life. And honestly, as I'm describing this, I want you to think about how many people do you know that live like this? How often do you live like this? So if you had to give yourself a percentage, what would that percentage be? What percentage of your life are you living full out as your true self, in love, fully present, um, with a sense of joy and peace? Like what percentage of your own life are you living that way? And what percentage of other people do you know that live that way? It's just not that common. And it's so magnetizing. And I find that especially, when you're in certain situations and especially maybe you're, in an environment where you're kind of around new people, I have to do this on purpose. This is something that I think about a lot, that I cultivate a lot when I'm with other people. I had the chance this past weekend to be with people that I truly love and admire, but I don't know that well. And I just wanted to get myself to this place of like I want to establish true connection. Like I want to show up as my true self. I want to be open and curious and loving and kind and interested and excited about this interaction with other people. And I thought about it beforehand. And when I went into the situation, I just checked in with myself. Have I slipped into trying to prove something to other people? Have I slipped into trying to protect myself? Have I slipped in to trying to people please instead of having true connection, just say what other people would want to hear? And I just would check in with myself. Uh, and that's what I'm talking about the self awareness. And what I find is that when I practice this, it makes the quality of the interaction so good, y'all. It makes your relationships so strong, so deep, so interesting to you. And the other thing that's so magical about doing this is as you do it and practice it, it invites other people to have that kind of interaction with you. It invites other people to live as their true selves, to interact with you from their true self. And what I find is so true is that even if there's a person in that I might interact with that other people will say, "Oh, she's so fake, she's so false." If I've learned how to live as my true self, maybe my interaction with that person is different because my commitment to living as my truest, highest self invites a different interaction with that person than other people might have. And I think this is such a great concept to think about in your marriage, really seeing and loving the other person from this place of being authentically who you are, but always striving to be your living from your highest self for the highest good of both of you, like really guided by love and guided by true curiosity, by desiring genuine connection. And again, I think this is so rare. My husband and I were talking about this when I got back from the weekend, and I was telling him, I was like, oh my gosh, the interactions were just so amazing because it felt like the highest versions, the most interesting, loving, curious, compassionate version of the people interacting with each other. And it's just such an amazing experience. And Stevie and I talk about this all the time that we feel so blessed because we feel like we have learned to navigate interacting with each other in this way. Not that we don't slip into being self centered or, being in your false self or whatever, because we obviously do. But then figuring out, like being self aware enough that when you do stray outside of that, you know how to bring yourself back. You know how to kind of get yourself grounded again without without saying, like, oh, you're a terrible person. There you go again. Like, trying to prove yourself to people. No, having a lot of compassion for yourself. Like, yeah, sometimes I slip into wanting to prove myself to people, but I can quickly get myself back to where I want to be. So I want to talk about over the next few weeks, qualities of the true self. These are concepts that I teach in life mentoring school. These are concepts that in my certification as a life coach, Christian life coach certification program, we teach. So we'll take one main topic each week. I'm going to mention them all for today, and then we're going to dive into one each week and basically go deeper into this concept. But the first quality of true self is that true self commits to ownership of her own mental and emotional well being. Instead of blaming other people or even shaming yourself, it's taking true ownership for how you're experiencing your life, true ownership for how you're experiencing the emotional issues that you have with yourself and with other people, taking ownership of your thoughts and how those thoughts are so powerful and um, create your emotional life. So we're going to talk about that's the concept we're going to talk about next week is true self commits herself to ownership of her life. Number 2 is true self connects with God, self, and others in a nourishing way. That's going to be the second quality. The third one is true self creates and cultivates nourishing habits and rhythms and routines. Because as you do that, as you cultivate nourishing habits, rhythms, and routines, it helps you stay more in true self, be more of your true self. And then true self contributes her highest gifts to others and makes her impact through those God-given gifts and contributions. So, those are the 4 qualities that we're going to talk about over the next 4 weeks. So, I can't wait to share more about this. I'll have a little download for you so that you can look at sort of true self and false self qualities. One of the things that I want you to think about between now and next week when we talk about this further is where do I struggle most in being my true self and why? Where do I struggle most in being my true self and why? Maybe think about like what situations you find yourself slipping into this false version of yourself where you're trying to prove yourself or protect yourself or people please other people or whatever. And so really asking yourself like where do I find that I struggle with this most? And I think the next 4 weeks will be really enlightening because you can look at these 4 main areas and figure out the areas that like, oh, this is one that I really want to work on and need to work on. I think a lot of us struggle often so much with relationships. At least that's what I find in my coaching program, is that almost always it comes down to relationships, but it's the other things, especially mental and emotional resilience that we're going to talk about next week. It's that really sets you up to have way more healthy relationships where you are operating from your true self. So we'll talk about that next week. I can't wait to see you then. Think about that between now and then. Where do you struggle most to live as your true self and why? Okay, I'll see you next time. Love you.